In 8.2, we're going to see what happens when we have two rational expressions and we're multiplying them and dividing them. It's going to be just like doing just normal fractions, but again, factor first, then simplify. So let's start with x minus 4 over x plus 1 times x minus 2 over x squared minus 6x plus 8. Okay, so we have to factor everything we can. We can't factor the binomials, but we do want to put them in parentheses. So we're going to have x minus 4 over x plus 1, and we have times x minus 2. Now we can factor this. We have a plus here, so that means they're both going to be the binomials are both going to have the same sign, and they're both going to have a minus. So we have x minus, and because this is a plus, our factors of 8 have to add up to 6, so we're going to have a 4 and a 2. So now we're going to see what's on top and what's on bottom of everything. So we have an x minus 4 on top and an x minus 4 on bottom, so those will cancel. We have an x minus 2 on top and an x minus 2 on bottom, so those will cancel. So since everything canceled on top, we're left with 1. Put that in parentheses, and on the bottom, x plus 1 in parentheses. Again, if you're using Math Quill, you won't need the parentheses, but if you're not, you need to put them in there so that the program knows what order you want everything. Now let's say we have x minus 3 over x squared plus 7x plus 12 times x plus 4 over x plus 1. So again, put all the binomials in parentheses so that we know that they are together and that they are one factor. Okay, so now we have two pluses, so we're going to have two pluses. And our factors of 12 have to add up to 7, so they are 4 and 3. So what do we have on both top and bottom? We have an x plus 4 on top and an x plus 4 on bottom. The only other thing we have on top is an x minus 3, but we don't have an x minus 3 on the bottom. So we're going to keep the x minus 3 on top. Now here, because we have two sets of factors, we need to put a bracket and then in parentheses x plus 3 and then x plus 1, close the bracket. Again, if you use Math Quill, you don't need to do all of this. You can just do it as a fraction. Next, let's say that we have 13, or no, let's say that we have 3x to the 13 y to the 6 over 13 x to the 3 times 5 y to the 4 over 9 x3 y8. So we can't really factor anything here. So the first thing I'm going to do is simplify the numbers. The 3 and the 9 can simplify. 3 will go into both of those. So this will become a 1 and this will become a 3. And now what I'm going to do is the multiplication. First I'm just going to do the numbers. I have a 1 times 5, which is 5, over 13 times 3, which is 39. Now I'm going to do all the variables. On top, I have 13 x's. On bottom, I have 3 plus 3, which is 6. So 13 minus 6, so this is going to be x to the 7. Since we have more x's on top, for y's, we have 6 plus 4, which is 10 on top. And we have 8 on bottom, so our y's are also going to stay on top. And it's going to be 10 minus 8, which is 2. So we have 5x to the 7 y squared over 39. Now let's look at one that has all trinomials. So we have x squared minus x minus 2 over x squared minus 3x plus 2 times x squared plus x minus 2 and x squared minus 4x minus 5. Okay, so again, factor everything first. Do not try to multiply and then do anything. Factor first. Okay, so for the first one, we have two minuses. So it means we're going to subtract, and since this is a minus, we're going to have x minus, x plus. Our only factors that exist for 2 are 2 and 1. On the bottom one, we have a plus and a minus, so that means we have two minuses, x minus, x minus. Our factors that exist for 2 are 2 and 1. For here, we have a minus and a plus, so that means we're going to have x plus, x minus. And our factors, again, are just 2 and 1. And here we have a minus and a minus, so we'll have a x minus, x plus. Our factors for 5 are 5 and 1. So now we're going to see what we have that we can cancel. We have an x minus 2 on top and bottom, so those will cancel. We have an x plus 1 on top and an x plus 1 on bottom, so those will cancel. We have an x plus 2 on top, but we don't have 1 on the bottom. And we have an x minus 1 on top and an x minus 1 on bottom, so those will cancel. So what we're left with on top is x plus 2, and what we're left with on bottom is x minus 5. Okay, so next we're going to do one that where we're dividing. We have x minus 1 over x minus 2 divided by x squared plus x minus 2 over x plus 2. So remember, with fractions, the first thing we do is flip the second one and turn it into a multiplication. So this becomes x minus 1 over x minus 2 times x plus 2 over x squared plus x minus 2. Note that I put the binomials in parentheses so I know that they go together. X minus 1 over x minus 2 times x plus 2 over, our factors here are going to be x plus 2 and x minus 1. Okay, so now we're going to see what's on top and bottom. We have an x minus 1 on top and an x minus 1 on bottom. We have an x plus 2 on top and an x plus 2 on bottom. We canceled everything except for the 1 on top. So we have the 1, and on bottom we have x minus 2. Next, let's say that we have 5x squared minus 14x plus 8 over 5x squared minus 8x minus 4 divided by 5x squared plus 16x minus 16 over x squared plus 3x minus 4. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is flip the second one. So we have 5x squared minus 14x plus 8 over 5x squared minus 8x minus 4 times x squared plus 3x minus 4 over 5x squared plus 16x minus 16. Okay, so I'm going to factor this one first because it's the easiest. I'm going to have an x plus 4 and an x minus 1. Then I'm going to factor the one right below. So I know I'm going to have a 5x and an x, and I'm going to have minus 4 plus 4. Then I'm going to factor this one. I'm going to have a 5x minus 5x minus, or no, x minus. And it's going to be 4 and 2. On the bottom, I'm going to have a 5x and an x, and it's going to be plus 2 minus 2. Okay, so now I can see what I have on both top and bottom. We have a 5x minus 4 on top, but no 5x. Actually, nope, this is a... This should have been x plus 4, 5x minus 4. So 5x minus 4, 5x minus 4. We have an x minus 2, x minus 2. We have an x plus 4, x plus 4. So we're left with x minus 1 over 5x plus 2. So on this one, if you factor the one that's easiest, what you can do is look at your factors, and we have a 4 and 1, and see if the 4 will go into one of the others. And here we had an x plus 4, x plus 4, so this was 5x minus 4. Then we make the assumptions. You can do it one at a time, or just factor everything and then simplify. So next, let's say that we have 2x squared minus x minus 15 over 2x squared minus 3x minus 9 times x squared minus 7x plus 10 over 2x squared minus 5x minus 25. So we don't need to flip one of these, so I'm going to factor this one first because it looks like the easiest. And it's going to be x minus 5 and x minus 2. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is look at the bottom ones. We have a 5 and a 2. Neither one of those will go into a 9, so I'm not going to do that one next. I'm going to do this one next. 5 will go into 5 times. So I'm going to assume that x minus 5 is a factor. Because this was a 2, that means this has to be a 2x. Because this was minus and minus, we already have one minus, so this has to be a plus. 5 will go into 25 5 times. So our other factor here is 2x plus 5. And now I'm going to go ahead and cancel these so I know not to use them again. Now here I have a 5 and here I have a 15. So 5 will go into 15 3 times, so I'm going to assume that 2x plus 5 is a factor. Since this was a 2x and we already have the 2, this means this is going to be an x. This was a minus, and so we already have a plus here, so we need a minus. 5 goes into 15 3 times. So now I'm going to cancel my 2x plus 5s, and we have an x minus 3 here. 3 will go into this 9, so I'm going to assume that x minus 3 is a factor. And because we have a 2 here, that means we have to have a 2x, and these were both minuses, so now I have to have a plus. 3 went into 9 3 times. So I'm going to have the x minus 3's cancel. What I'm left with on top is x minus 2. What I'm left with on bottom is 2x plus 3. Okay, this is a kind of a shortcut that I did here where I factored the easiest one, and then I looked to see what my binomial number is, and if that number goes into the third number of a trinomial, I'm going to assume that that whole binomial was a factor here. You can do that with most of these. It does take some getting used to. Until you get better at it, just go ahead and factor everything and then cancel. But remember that you have to factor first. Okay, so this last one has three expressions. So x squared minus 8x plus 15 over 4x squared minus 1 times 2x squared minus 7x minus 4 over 4x squared minus 21x plus 5 divided by x squared minus 7x plus 12 over 16x squared minus 8x plus 1. So the first thing I have to do is flip the third one because it's the division. So x squared minus 8x plus 15 over 4x squared minus 1 times 2x squared minus 7x minus 4 over 4x squared minus 21x plus 5 times 16x squared minus 8x plus 1 over x squared minus 7x plus 12. So the first one I'm going to factor is this difference of two squares. So I'm going to have 2x plus 1, 2x minus 1. And then notice here we have a perfect square trinomial. So I'm going to have 4x minus 1, 4x minus 1. The next one that looks easy to factor will be this one. We're going to have two minuses, x minus, x minus. We have factors of 15 that add up to 8, so 5 and 3. And then another easy one here is this one. We're going to have an x minus, x minus. Our factors of 12 that add up to 7 are 4 and 3. So before we do anything else, let's go ahead and cancel what we can. We have an x minus 3 and an x minus 3, so those are gone. Okay, so now let's look at this x minus 5 and this last one. There's a 5 here and a 5 here, so let's assume that x minus 5 is a factor. So that means since we have a 4 here, our other factor also has to be a 4, x, and since we have two minuses, it's going to be minus 5. This 5 goes into this 5 one time. So now our x minus 5s will cancel. And now we can also cancel this 4x minus 1 with this 4x minus 1. And here, we're going to have a 2x and an x. We know that we have to subtract to get to 7. So 2 times 4 is 8, and 1, subtract 1 makes 7. So this has to be minus, this is plus. These cancel. What we're left with on top is, let's see here. Oh, no, this is a 4. So x minus 4s also cancel. What we're left with on top is 4x minus 1. What we're left with on bottom is 2x minus 1.